What's up, everybody? Tom the Dilettante here. I hope you're all having a wonderful day. It occurred to me that I'm way behind in giving a general walk-around video on the Crosstrek. So today I thought I would just take a moment and show you the different mods that I've done to the car in the 1 year that I've had it. I'm not going to take a whole lot of time doing it, but I figure if you see anything that tickles your fancy, something you have questions about, just leave me a comment below and I'll try to make a more detailed video about it later. So yeah, here we go. The very first mod I did to the Crosstrek was to install this ScanGauge II. It plugs right into your OBD2 port, and I've got it mounted onto my steering column with some Gorilla double-sided tape. Works great. And what it does is it allows you to display real-time a variety of the sensors from your car. Currently I've got mine set up to show water temperature, voltage, intake air temperature, and what I really bought it for was the transmission fluid temperature, the CVT in my case. Out of the box, the ScanGauge does not come with the ability to display the CVT, but with a series of codes that you can plug in that I got off the interwebs, I'll be happy to share it with anyone who wants to know, you can get it to pull and display the CVT temps. So this has come in handy when I've been on the trails, lets me know how hot I'm running, and gives me a good early warning sign of when to start pulling over and just let it cool down, as you may have seen from some of my videos. Another early mod I did was to install a USB-C line that goes from my fuse block to behind the mirror next to a GoPro mount. And this is a constant hot that allows me to run power to a GoPro whenever I'm riding on the road, so I don't have to worry about killing off all my batteries. I haven't done a video on this one yet, and I think I will in the near future because it's a really simple mod. As a licensed amateur radio operator, I've got some ham gear in the car that I really enjoy. This one here is my mobile rig. It's a Yaesu FTM 400 XDR with GPS and APRS and all sorts of ham goodies. If anyone's interested in learning more about ham radio, let me know in the comments and I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. I'm literally only about 4 months into the hobby, but I've learned a lot and it's a fantastic thing to get into. This particular radio is mounted to a RAM mount, a mod that I did do a video on. Feel free to check it out here. And this is an extremely versatile and handy mod. Before I used it as a permanent mount for my ham radio, I've used it for Garmin InReach, phone mounts, and whatnot. And if I ever get tired of this configuration, it's a simple matter of just disconnecting this and putting anything else with a 1-inch ball in there that tickles my fancy. Speaking of RAM mounts, another mod that I've got is this Lido Wedge seat mount. It's really just a wedge, pull it out here, that sits in between the passenger seat and the center console. It comes with a 1-inch RAM ball, and you're limited basically by your imagination. Right now I've got it connected to an arm and an HT or handy talkie mount that I use to mount my Baofeng handheld to. And so this is handy whenever I want to leave the car and go out in a trail or whatnot. Rounding out my cockpit, I've got this nice cheap Amazon bicycle handle mag mount that I use for my phones. So you can basically just toss it on there, attach your cord to it to get it up to the head unit, and you can still use the e-brake. I still use my e-brake a lot, but I find this to be a lot handier than putting it in the cup holder or extending a cable all the way to the front. Simple mag mount, sits right there, and it's nice and convenient, within reach, but still out of the way. Working our way to the back, my very first YouTube video saw me installing this 12-volt panel adapter. This thing is phenomenal. It allows me to charge things through either USB or a standard 12-volt socket while I'm on the road. Granted, I usually only use it when the car is running, but if I do need to plug something in while I camp, as long as I don't leave it plugged in and running too long, it's excellent to have. Ever since I got the car, I felt like the audio was just lacking some oomph. I didn't get any of the premium audio packages with the car, so it's pretty much bone stock in that regard. This JL Audio powered sub really makes a difference in the daily commute, I'll tell you. So it's got an amp built in, it's an 8-inch sub, and it really rounds out the sound of the Crosstrek, I must say. I hope to do a video on this sometime soon, just to kind of backtrack through some of the footage and pictures I've got to show you how I installed it. But it's really the first of several audio mods I hope to do to the car. I figured this is going to get me the most bang for the buck by increasing some of that bottom range. And then in the future will be additional amps for the speakers and new speakers throughout, and maybe even someday an upgraded head unit. And the last of my interior mods was a recent video I did on how to install an interior hatch release button. Now, the only reason I did that is because I figured it's nice to have the option to get out of the car from the inside, especially if you're camping in there. And one thing I didn't mention in that video, bonus, that switch is disabled if you lock your doors, much like the exterior button. So some of the comments and questions I've received was, you know, well, what if you accidentally kick the thing open when you're in your sleep? What if some cargo rolls into the button while you're driving? Take heart, if you lock your doors, that button will not work. On to the outside. I do have 2 lifts installed. I have an LP Aventure, I think it's Aventure, not Adventure. LP Aventure 1.5-inch lift. It's a spacer lift for the front and rear. In the front, it's spacers that go up underneath the struts, and in the rear, it lowers the entire sub-assembly, the subframe, down to give you some extra ground clearance. In addition to the LP Aventure lift, I have Rallytech springs, front and rear, that also provided an additional, I think it was 3/4 or 1-inch lift. Now, granted, combined, I'm sure I'm setting myself up for an early and catastrophic failure of CV joints and axles. It is something I continue to monitor on the regular, and I've got 15,000 miles now. I will let you know when they start to fail with this setup. But so far, so good. The tire and wheel combo is something I'm really happy with in this car. I've always liked this copper, this bronze color on Subarus. And so what I've got here are some KMC KM708s, 15x7 rims, and they're wrapped with Toyo Open Country AT2s in 225/75/15. Now, I know some folks like to punch it all the way up to 235/75/15, but I noticed that there's not a whole lot of room. Even with the lift as aggressive as the one I've got by relative standards, there is not a whole lot of room with a tire that big with respect to the front bumpers and the tire wells and even the mud guards. They will start to rub. These even rub a little bit, but it's not something I can't live with. Behind these tires with the lift and them sticking out a little bit more, I do have a set of Rockblocks mud guards. And so here they are on the rear. Relatively easy install. This company sends a great kit. Just comes in with some hardware, replaces some of the factory stuff. The front mud guards, however, because of the larger tires and the offset of the wheels, I did end up having to cut them a little bit here and bending them back a little bit. Otherwise, as the tire turns, in this case looking at the driver's side, as the rear part of the tire goes in, it will rub the hell out of that rock block guard. And I did what I did just to prevent it from binding. I've also got a Curt 2-inch receiver. It's a nice standard size. It's come in very handy for anything from bicycle racks to recovery hooks. I'm thinking about repurposing it in the near future for a swing down or swing out tire carrier. Putting the tire on the roof basket is great, but I would really like to reclaim that space for some additional cargo. To pull in signal to my ham radio, I've got a diamond mount and a diamond antenna. This is a 2-meter and 70 centimeter or 440 megahertz antenna. It does a good job. I've actually had to do a little bit of modification to it. When you pull it up, you see that it opens up nicely and doesn't get in the way. The bracket that it came with, I had to bend up just a little bit so that it didn't hit the bumper. And another thing, if you're going to mount it on the hatch, is that the only way it's going to be grounded is through the hinges, which is insufficient. You're going to get a little bit of noise. So I did run an additional grounding wire from the hatch to the rest of the chassis to improve the signal. All right, now let's talk some armor. Since I do like to take some trails, some aggressive ones at that, and my driving isn't always the best. I've beaten the crap out of the underside of this thing before. I'm now armored from front to rear. I'll get to the engine and transmission skid plates in a second. In the rear, I'm rocking a Primitive Racing rear gearbox cover. and they did an excellent job with this kit. It was super easy to bolt on. The engineering was really well thought out from the install. You literally just take out this one bolt, install the thing, loosen these other two. The guides allows you to just swing it right up and attach. All of the hardware is countersunk and recessed to glide over any obstacles. I'm really happy with this. You can see I've got some chunks out of it already, and I would highly recommend this to anyone thinking about a rear gearbox cover. It's again from Primitive Racing, and they definitely get an A+ from me. In the front, I've got some Rallytech engine and transmission skid plates. Now, I did do a video on this install, and while I had some difficulties getting the thing in, Rallytech actually contacted me after finding me on both Instagram and YouTube, said that they corrected the hardware issue that came with the transmission skid plate, and were really great as far as customer service and addressing my questions and concerns. For that alone, the attention that they clearly give to a relative nobody on the interwebs, I'll be shopping with them again. Their customer service tells me that they're really dedicated to making sure that the experiences their customers have are positive. So great job, Rallytech, and thank you. In the front, in addition to some just Amazon special LED bulbs for the headlights, I've got some Diode Dynamic SS3s in amber. These things I really love. I love the amber look. I love the performance. They're super bright. My only issue with these is that for some reason they do seem to produce some RFI, some radio frequency interference, right around the 2-meter ham band, or the 140 megahertz range. I contacted Diode Dynamics about the issue, and they were kind enough to go ahead and send me another set to try to install to see if it would mitigate the issue. No questions asked. They said, yeah, here you go. I had to return the other set, of course, but even after installing the new set, it sadly didn't get rid of the RFI, so I'm still kind of hunting that down. Wrapping up some of my more significant mods is going to be this worn bumper with a semi-hidden winch mount. This thing, I won't lie, I just really like the aggressive look of this thing and the bull bar. Plus, I think it complements the Under Armour really well. And I have smacked this thing a couple of times on my last trip in Colorado, and it did a heck of a lot better job than I'm sure the plastic OEM bumper would have done. So in this thing, I've got a worn Axon 55S winch with a synthetic rope. Haven't had to use it yet, but it's a hell of a great peace of mind to have in case I do. These toe points I have had to use, either to get dragged or pulled out of some troubles. And you know, one thing that's really nice about this is that, check it out, the lines on this thing actually match up really nice with the Rallytech skid plate. And so it's a really smooth transition from the bumper to the skid plate and all the way back. So super happy with it so far. It does add a fair amount of weight to the front end. So if you're gonna do this mod, I highly suggest at least some overload springs so you don't feel so soft. But when I installed the springs originally, I noticed that it helped eliminate some of that understeer that this car seems to be known for. But after tossing in this front weight, it seems to have come back. It's not detrimental, but it does make a difference. All right, I hope you enjoyed that overdue walk around of the Crosstrek. It's getting cold out. You factor in daylight savings time and the fact that it's gonna be dark at like 4 p.m. I'm not ready for winter. I don't have a heated garage either, so I don't know how many more mods I'll be doing over the winter, but I've really enjoyed working on this thing so far, so I probably won't be able to help myself. Either way, I'll do my best to keep the content coming. Really appreciate you guys watching. If you've got any questions about anything you've seen, please leave them in the comments below. But yeah, by and by, zero regrets on this car. It's 1 year old for me, and granted, I've kind of modded the shit out of it, taking it on several road trips, one cross country, and no regrets. Loving the heck out of it. So as always, thank you so much for watching. I look forward to our next video together, and until then, have a good one.